Okay, so this is the tablet that I use to draw. This is the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, so it is the larger run. I don't remember exactly what model it is, but I believe this is the 2019 version. So it's not the newest, but it's almost the newest. And then of course I have my Apple 2nd generation pencil, and you do have to get the 2nd generation for the iPad Pro because it charges by attaching to the side. And my little case is from Amazon. I can link it down below for you guys. And I do have a paper-like screensaver on it, and essentially what it does is it just makes it feel like you are drawing on paper, and it also just keeps the screen matte so there's not as much glare when you're drawing. So the app that I use to draw is called Procreate. It is $10 on the Apple Store. It is not a subscription basis app. You just pay the $10 one time and you don't have to pay any other fees. Okay, hi. Me editing very quickly. I just want to say that this is not a Procreate tutorial and a breakdown of Procreate. This is just how I use it and the tools that I use. I don't use every single Procreate tool. So I just want to disclaim that. I am not here to give you a tutorial on the app. I am just showing you how I use it to create digital illustrations. So now let's just get into exactly what brushes I use and all of that stuff. So the first thing that I always do is set my background to this off-white color, just because I personally don't use pure white in my drawings. This is my color palette that I use for all of my drawings. I very rarely will stray from this. As you can tell, I don't have any purple here because I do not like the color purple whatsoever. I will only use it if it is crucial to a character design in fan art or something. So yeah, the first thing I will always do is set this to this off-white color. Now I also have my set of brushes that I like to use. I didn't create these brushes, this is just the set that I made because these are the brushes that I frequent, and I just named it my set. Now these two brush sets I did buy. I will link them down below because I don't remember exactly what they were called, but if you are interested in them, I will link them so you guys can purchase. But yeah, these are the brushes that I typically use. My go-to brush is the 6B pencil, which is a brush that comes with the Procreate app. This is the brush that I use all the time. I just really like how it really feels like you are using a pencil, and it's nice and dark enough and consistent enough to do anything with. I mean, it's just usually what I use. I will use it to sketch, I will use it to fill in, I will use it to color. It is my main brush that I like to use. My style is definitely much more sketchy than the traditional digital art that's more clean and very filled in. I like to definitely do stuff that's more sketchy. So now, starting from top to bottom, I have the Nationality pencil, which is another brush that comes with the Procreate app. So this pencil is similar to the 6B, but it's much tighter and it feels much more like a mechanical pencil. So I will use this if I need to get really small details. I don't very often use this brush. The next brush that I use is the Smoky shader brush, and that did come with the brush set that I purchased. Yeah, it just creates like this really nice dotted texture. I really like to use this brush to do the cheeks on my people or to redden areas of the body. So yeah, you can get really light with it or super dark, so it is pressure sensitive, and if you layer it, you will be able to see where it's been layered. Next brush I have is the butter knife, which is another brush that came with this set, and this is a much smoother pen. Like, you can see that it's very similar to like calligraphy or a brush pen, but I really like this because it has already built into it like little breakup points, so the line isn't perfectly clean, which I really appreciate. Like I said, I don't like very smooth styles. I like to really have a nice rough textured style, and this already has little holes built into it, which I think really breaks it up. I don't very often use this because I don't often do line art, but when I do have to because of the structural integrity of whatever I'm drawing or something, I will use this to do some line work. Next brush I have here I only use when I am doing the outlines of my stickers because it's a monoline pen and it is very consistent. As you can see, because of the behavior of the brush, it just is a lot more streamlined and it won't show if you waver a little bit as much. So, and it's very consistent. It's not size dependent or anything. Depending on pressure, it will stay the same width and the same opacity. So that is what I use that brush for. Next brush under the 6B pencil is Eagle Hawk. And I think from now on it's all Procreate brushes. So this one is like a really nice, almost watercolor effect textured brush. It's similar to the Smoky shader where it's pressure sensitive, the opacity and the intensity of the color and the size. So yeah, you can really see the texture, and it even has texture that comes out from the brush stroke. So yeah, I really enjoy this brush. I don't get to use it as often as I would like. I definitely have it there in case I want an effect like this. Next brush is pretty similar. It's called Gloaming, but it's slightly more pen-like, like more calligraphy, and it's slightly more controlled as well. So it's not as textured, but it still kind of has that watercolory texture. It's kind of similar to maybe a gouache pen or something on digital art. Next pen I have here is Chalk. I used to use this one a lot more in my previous pieces, but I don't use it nearly as much. It is originally supposed to be like a calligraphy type of pen. You can really see that maneuvering when I use it. And it's just another textured pen. It's a lot more controlled than the previous two, but it is still very textured. So next one is the actual Gouache Pen, and this one just has like a very smooth gouache texture to it. It's not as like gritty or bumpy as Gloaming or what's it called, Eagle Hawk. It just has this really pretty wash of color look to it, and you can build it up, of course. I used to use this one a lot as well. Lately I haven't as much, but I do have it there as an option in case I want to use it. So next brush is the Stuco Brush, and I also used to use this one a lot. This has kind of like that, I mean it's stucco, it's called stucco, yeah, it kind of has like that brick outside of a house kind of texture to it. It's very textured. It's definitely the most textured brush that I have in my set. I used to use this a lot to create shadows so that the shadows could be nice and textured instead of flat, but lately I've been going more for a flat shadow, but I do like to have it here to add extra texture. And last brush that I have on here is the dry ink brush, and this is probably the most controlled or smooth brush that I will use in my actual art. It's similar to the 6B pencil, but it has less texture and less gaps in it. It's much more uniform, but it still has a little bit of roughness. Again, I haven't been using this one as often as I used to, but I will if I have to do lettering sometimes, or if I want something that has a little bit less gaps than my 6B pencil. So these are all the brushes that I use. I am going to move on to the section of this where I show you how I actually use them instead of just talking about them. But yeah. So I am going to be working on this piece that I had already started, and as you can see I have my off-white background, and whenever I make pieces I always do square format because that's what fits on Instagram, for my personal pieces at least. But yeah, I always do the square format that comes in Procreate. And now I am going to show you guys how I actually draw. So this object is already pretty much finished. I might go back and add some more or take away and whatnot, but I am going to start on the next object. So I am going to create a new layer, and I personally don't name my layers because I'm lazy, but it definitely would be helpful if you did. So because my theme for this piece is laundry items, I am gonna do a fabric softener over here because this is the detergent. So I always look up reference photos because art is a very observational practice, so it's very important to always have reference even if you feel like you know exactly what something looks like. So I'm taking a look at this and I see that there's a lot of pictures of flowers. The jugs are very smooth and soft looking, I assume to get the message that this fabric softener works. I see blankets, I see a teddy bear, I see just a lot of curvilinear shapes, so I'm going to keep that in mind, and I'm also going to pick a shape to do my fabric softener, preferably something different from this just to get some variety. Now for sketching, I always do a dark gray just because sometimes if you do a black on a white, the contrast is so extreme that at least for me, it makes me feel like my art looks worse than it actually does. So softening that contrast kind of helps during sketching. So I take this dark gray that I have here and I have my 6B pencil like always. And I'm just going to start doing a really rough sketch. This does not have to be exact whatsoever. I'm just kind of going to get the shape down on the paper so I can start refining. So now that I have that rough shape down, I'm going to lower the opacity of that sketch so it doesn't get as in the way, and I'm going to do a slightly more refined sketch because I don't do line work. I have a very lineless look to my work. I tend to not get too exact with this sketch, so I am just doing some quick refining. Okay, and now that I have the refined basic shape down, I'm going to delete that other rough sketch, turn down the opacity of this one, make sure the size and the placement is how I like it. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller maybe, place it down here. And now I am going to start blocking in my basic colors. And if you guys struggle with color palettes, I will link down below some color palette resources, and I definitely recommend you guys read up or learn a little bit about color theory. Not that you necessarily have to in order to make good art, but I feel like if you learn a little bit about color theory, it really helps the art making process a lot smoother and a lot faster. So here's that technique that I do when I fill in. I am still using my 6B pencil, and I'm not going to do the classic drag and drop to fill in, oh that dropped, to fill in a shape so it's a nice smooth color. I like to color in with this 6B pencil because again, I personally like a much more sketchy, textured look to my digital work. So this is about the desired amount that I would want, so almost completely filled in, but not so much so that you can still see a little bit of the gaps underneath. So that is my basic block of color. I'm gonna go in and add another layer underneath because I'm gonna be doing the top of the bottle. So I'm feeling a little bit of a peach for the top of the bottle. Again, all of this could change. I just kind of start laying down some colors. And now I'm going to show you guys how I do a clipping mask. I used to only do alpha lock, but clipping masks actually help out a lot. So you just make a layer on top of whatever you want to work on, and then you click on it and you put clipping mask. And essentially what this does is you can do stuff on top of your object, but it won't go outside of it. So it's very useful. So I'm going to lay down the label, and I'm thinking... Now because this is a clipping mask, I am just going to do the drag and drop, and that texture will still show through underneath. Now I can get rid of my sketch, and now I'm going to start working on the label. So I'm going to do a little bit of a teddy bear. When I use my eraser, I always have it on 6B pencil because if I make a mistake, I don't want to take away that nice texture that I created with my brush. So having the eraser as 6B, it still keeps in that texture. So for instance right here, I'm not super happy with the placement of the nose and the mouth, so I'm gonna go to, I think this is called the select tool, and I always use freehand, and I just select that, and then I go to the move tool, and I'm just gonna move it over a little bit, and that's how I use that. Now sometimes I place something and things touch where I don't want them to touch. So to group something, I'm gonna have one of the layers selected and swipe like this, group it, and then just move it, because sometimes I don't want to merge it just yet because maybe I want to do some adjustments to certain layers. And that is how I illustrate using Procreate, you guys. I hope this was helpful for you. I got a lot of questions asking me what brushes I use and how I use them, so I just wanted to show you guys exactly what they were and how I use them. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.